Welcome back to the final best free hit team video of the season ahead of Gameweek 38 in FPL. And if you still got the wild card, what have you been doing all this time? You can also use this video as a guidance and reference point and also build your best wild card team. So this can also tackle 2 chips at once. And even if you have no chip available, you can still use this video for ideas of transfer plans for the best players and teams to target for the final Gameweek of the season. If you want to see a reaction stream, then let me know down in the comment section below and we can talk about double Gameweek 37 and also our preview into Gameweek 38. We'll do the usual deadline stream 2 hours before the FPL deadline, and of course the FPL team selection video alongside all the content ahead of matchday 13 in UCL Fantasy for the Champions League final. But be sure to drop this video a like and subscribe to the channel. Share this video around for those that love FPL and UCL Fantasy, and let's jump straight into this, starting with the goalkeepers of the best free hit team for Gameweek 38. I've talked about David De Gea quite extensively for several weeks now. I think he's by far the best goalkeeper for the last Gameweek of this season, and even if you look at other examples, maybe for Gameweek 37 as well, where he had a double, I was always recommending to people that you should buy him. Now, you do have some alternatives in Gameweek 38, but I would back Man United for that clean sheet, despite facing a Fulham side with an informed Mitrovic returning from suspension, and of course, Mitrovic might have a score to settle because that suspension started from the FA Cup fixture a few months ago against Manchester United, where things turned sour and Fulham bottled a 1-0 lead and ended up losing that game quite comprehensively in the end. They lost their heads, they got 2 red cards, the manager got sent off, so they could have a point to prove. But I would back Man United for that game, and David De Gea has a great chance of a clean sheet. But if you want to consider an alternative, Alisson could be a decent option, even Ederson/Ortega. The problem is nailing down that right Man City goalkeeper, with Man City already wrapping up the title. Then you've got a few other options here and there, like Ramsdale at home to Wolves, but I would go for David De Gea, and Iverson is the backup, who surprisingly kept the clean sheet away to Newcastle. But I think that game definitely, it should have been something else entirely in terms of the score. It wasn't, and Leicester isn't a team I would back for the clean sheet in the final Gameweek of the season, despite facing West Ham, who are already safe, and of course resting and preparing for that Europa Conference League final. So I've gone for David De Gea. Let me know if you go for any other goalkeeper. I think the main alternatives though would be Alisson and Ramsdale. You have a mixture of familiar faces and maybe some surprise inclusions in this back 5. So Trent is someone I've been talking about extensively for a few months now. Since Gameweek 30, he's been the best defender in the game, but he produced his first blank in Gameweek 37 against Aston Villa, so no attacking returns whatsoever, no clean sheet for Liverpool, and Trent was a bit underwhelming, but he's been so consistent recently, and I'd still include him against Southampton away, where I expect Liverpool to win by probably 2 or 3 at the very least, and Trent could be involved in an attacking return, get some bonus points, and perhaps a clean sheet to wrap things off. I've also gone for Luke Shaw, and Man United have kept 17 clean sheets this season, the most of any club, and Luke Shaw's been part of 12 of those. He's also good for bonus points, and also assists from odd occasion. But I think the main appeal about Shaw is if United draw 0-0 or get a narrow victory like a 1-0, Shaw has a great chance of getting 2 or 3 bonus points, and he has a bit of a bonus points machine in general, whether he's playing as a centre back or as a left back. So I definitely recommend him and go for 2 Man United defenders. But you might be a bit uneasy about that because Fulham could still score, and it might ruin things entirely for your backline if you go for De Gea and Luke Shaw, and that's where you can maybe balance things out a little bit more, go for Ramsdale in goal or Alisson. But I also want to go for some more Arsenal and Liverpool players in the midfield and the forward line. I've also gone for Kieran Trippier, who has produced back-to-back returns now after a very disappointing couple of months. Since February, you could say Trippier and Newcastle defenders just haven't been worth the money, but Newcastle finally kept that clean sheet at home against Leicester. They should have won the game, but they still kept that clean sheet, and that point was enough to secure Champions League football. And Kieran Trippier, Newcastle's player of the season, has been an integral part to that with his assists, his creativity, his constant threat down that right-hand side, and also the bonus points they can offer FPL managers, and that's why he's the most popular FPL option in the defence. I've also gone for Ben White, and Arsenal have been really poor in home matches from a defensive perspective in recent weeks. Since April, things have really tailed off, and Arsenal went from competing toe-to-toe with City and actually outdoing them for most of the season, and they've absolutely crumbled in this last couple of games with only 2 wins in the last 8 matches and 1 clean sheet since Saliba's absence, which happened back in March against Sporting. But I would back Arsenal for a clean sheet at home against Wolves, who've got the 3rd worst away record of any Premier League club this season, and they don't score enough goals in general, but especially away from home. And I think Arsenal could maybe produce a response in front of their fans, a decent way to end the season because it has been really poor in recent months. And I think Ben White is a really good option in the back line. And you might not even start him, but he's a good option to consider. I don't think many people will recommend him because of how poor Arsenal have been and the defensive record at home. Not enough clean sheets there, and that's something that needs to improve for next season. But I would go for an Arsenal defender to change things up a little bit, and I think Ben White will be the pick of the bunch. Just be aware that rotation could happen in several areas of the pitch. Even a Bukayo Saka, for example, could be rested finally when things are maybe a bit too late from Mikel Arteta's perspective, but Ben White, I think, will start, and he has a decent chance of a clean sheet. And I've also gone for Rico Lewis, who might not even start, to be fair, but he's 3.8 million. He's got a decent chance against Brentford, I think, of getting another start if it doesn't happen against Brighton in the second game of Double Gameweek 37. And if not, he can just sit on your bench anyway. I'm not necessarily expecting Man City to keep a clean sheet away to Brentford, but they'll probably still win the game quite comfortably, even with their B team. But this is my back five, and if you've got any other suggestions, let me know. I think a few other standouts would include Mark Gay at home to Nottingham Forest. I think Palace is another team to really target apart from Arsenal, Liverpool and Manchester United. If you're a long-time viewer of this channel, you will know my thoughts on Arsenal. I tend to be quite cynical about them, and in FPL terms, I try to be as objective as possible, and I don't let any biases or anything influence my opinions on whether you should buy a certain player or not, whether it's from Arsenal or any other club. But I think this game against Wolves is one where Arsenal could win quite comprehensively, keep the clean sheet, and that's why I've gone for a triple up with Ben White at the back and Saka and Odegaard. And Saka's just signed a new contract with Arsenal that was announced today on Tuesday, the 23rd of May. And that is already public, it's already official. And Odegaard has had a fantastic season. I mean, both of them have, to be fair, even Ben White as well. They're the two contenders as well for Player of the Year overall, Young Player of the Year. And of course, for Arsenal, they are two of the front runners as well. Odegaard's maybe been a bit more consistent since April. But before that, you could argue Saka was the best player up until March, really, and that international break. But things slowly tailed off. He had a bit of an injury or a problem in that game against Leeds. He was benched, and ever since that, he came back into the side and hasn't been the same. Only one or two decent performances here and there, one against Southampton in the 3-3 draw, but Saka is definitely capable of much more, and I think the next step for him to become a world-class player is to deliver in the business end of the season when it matters most, because in the last 2 years, you could argue, alongside the entire team to be fair, Saka hasn't done quite enough. Even Odegaard as well, who's maybe scored more goals and been a bit more consistent than Saka in this run-in, he's also suffered a bit in certain games and ghosted when Arsenal have needed him. But I think both of these have a really good chance of hauling against Wolves, especially Odegaard, who tends to do really well against teams in the bottom end of the table, at home or away from him, it doesn't really matter. He also hauled in the away fixture against Wolves, so I would recommend having both of them if you can. But if I had to pick one, maybe it would be Odegaard because he has been in better form and Saka has struggled since April. I would also consider Salah. I mean, not even consider. I would go for Salah. Let's just make it clear. I think he's the best option, period, in this game week, and he probably will be the front runner for the captaincy as well. Facing Southampton away, he's got a decent record against them at St Mary's and also at home, and I think Salah's a great option, period, this game week, regardless of his price. If you can get to him, I'd highly recommend it. For those of you with Harry Kane, for example, and Erling Haaland, it might be a bit difficult. I wouldn't take a -4 hit potentially, but if you can do it for free, I'd probably switch to Salah. I think it's worth it. And I'd also go for Eze at home to Nottingham Forest, who have the worst record of any Premier League club away from home. And after securing their safety in a 1-0 victory over Arsenal, Nottingham Forest have nothing to play for. You could also argue that they have nothing to lose, and Crystal Palace are another club that, you know, have been safe for quite some time and they have nothing to play for either. But I think it'll be a high-scoring game, and I think Eze could be one of the biggest players who profit from that, and he could do extremely well. I actually recommended him in the Game Week 32 free hit. It didn't pay off that time when he faced Everton at home. I had him on the free hit myself. But since then, he's produced some really big returns, a lot of double-digit hauls with the bonus points and the attacking threat. So Eze is the Crystal Palace attacker that I'd highly recommend to you. And the final midfielder is Marcus Rashford, who's still flagged at this moment in time. Even if he misses out that second game in 37, I would have no issues or no problems with him getting back in the side for Game Week 38 against Fulham at home. I think will be available. And you could also consider Bruno Fernandes, of course, but Rashford for me is the standout. And he's had a very good season, a bit inconsistent consistent, I think, in recent months. Only 2 Premier League goals since February, but generally he's done very well. He's a contender for the best left winger this season alongside Gabriel Martinelli, and I would highly recommend going for Rashford in the midfield if you can. And it's a very solid balance as well. We've got 2 from Arsenal, 1 from Liverpool, 1 from Man United, and 1 from Crystal Palace. I've also got a bit of a balance at the back as well. And now it's time to complete this team with the 3 forwards. I've gone for another enabler here in Greenwood, so forget about him. He'll be third on the bench. The main ones to focus on are Harry Kane and Julian Alvarez. I've actually got 2.6 million left in the bank with this 50-man squad, so this would cost around 101.1 million. It's very accessible, very easy to build, and I'm pretty sure most of you, if not all, should be able to afford this. And if you want to make a few other upgrades here and there, let me know down in the comment section below, and we can maybe make some alternatives and engage in the comment section. You could even go for Wilson in for Greenwood and start all 3 of them up front. I still think Newcastle will get the victory against Chelsea away, and Wilson could be involved heavily in that victory. But I think the main forwards to really focus on this week would be Harry Kane and a Man City attacker, either Erling Haaland or Alvarez. Now, if you really want to get Erling Haaland alongside Harry Kane, you have to make sacrifices. It might mean downgrading Saka to a really cheap midfielder, and if you want to do that, that's completely fair enough. But I'm not that convinced that Erling Haaland will start, as we saw against Chelsea. Pretty much all of the main players were rested, with maybe 1 or 2 exceptions here or there, like Julian Alvarez and Riyad Mahrez. But with Man City, Pep Roulette is just going to be absolutely massive at this point. But they also need to get a bit of match sharpness in these key players ahead of the FA Cup final and the Champions League final. So I would expect Erling Haaland to start at least 1 of the remaining 2 games, with Brighton, of course, up next on Wednesday, and then Brentford on the final day of the season. But I would go for Harry Kane over Erling Haaland this week. Facing Leeds, I think Leeds could actually get the victory, but they'll still ship in some goals and some chances, and Harry Kane has done it in every single game pretty much, it seems, this season. Despite losing 3-1 to Brentford at home, Harry Kane put Spurs ahead with a fantastic goal set up by Kulusevski, and in the end Spurs just let him down once again. But he's a great option away to Leeds here, and I think he's a great option even for the captaincy. I would prefer Salah a little bit more, but I would highly recommend having Harry Kane as well. And as for Alvarez, he might not be the absolute best option on paper. If he starts against Brentford, he has a good chance of hauling, and it all really depends on the setup, whether he's alongside Erling Haaland or if he's the sole striker like he was against Chelsea. But let me know what your thoughts are in terms of this 50-man squad. I think there are a few things you could maybe criticize about this, especially the 2nd/3rd forward. And like I said again, we've got plenty of money in the bank. You can go for Wilson instead of Greenwood. You could even take a punt on a Liverpool forward, Roberto Firmino, for his last ever Premier League game, and a few other things here and there, like Bruno Fernandes in for Saka, and then maybe not going for 2 Man United defenders in David De Gea and Luke Shaw. But let's now go to FPL.team, talk about the starting 11, the captaincy, and wrap up this video. Unsurprisingly, I've gone for David De Gea in goal, with Iverson sitting on the bench. I've also gone for a back 3 of Trent, White and Shaw, and a midfield 5 of Salah, Eze, Saka, Odegaard and Rashford, and the front 2 of Alvarez and Harry Kane. And the bench also looks very solid. I always recommend this, even on the free hit. Try to have at least 1 decent option there just in case. You might not want to bench Trippier, and that's completely fair enough. I did it in Gameweek 37 and that didn't go according to plan, of course. I've also got Rico Lewis and Greenwood to complete this 50-man squad. So a decent bench. It's not too good, which is a good thing, but you've also got that good option just in case in Kieran Trippier. And I've also gone for Salah as the captain and Harry Kane as the vice. Now, some of you watching may just think, no, I can't go without Erling Haaland, and that's fair enough. But like I said, I wouldn't go for him over Harry Kane, in my opinion, despite the fact that Spurs are more likely to lose the game and score fewer goals than Man City. But Harry Kane is so heavily involved, and Man City might not even play Erling Haaland for as many minutes as you would like for him to be your FPL captain once again. So I would go a bit different with the captaincy this week, and I think Salah is the one to go for. It might not be the biggest differential captaincy in the world, but it should still be enough against the general FPL populace, who most of them will be captaining Erling Haaland, as they have been doing throughout most of the season. So once again, I encourage you to continue the discussion in the comment section down below. Who would you change in this 50-man squad? Is there anyone in the starting 11 you don't really trust? There are definitely some things to improve potentially, and it's all down to your opinions as well and what you prefer, which teams you also want to target. I think the main ones would be Liverpool, Arsenal, Man United and Man City if you can get it right, and even someone like Crystal Palace. that team could be really good with their fixture, with some of their assets like Eze and Mark Gay. They could offer some really good value, but I would mainly back the attackers in that game because I think it could be quite high scoring, and I'm not so sure about clean sheets, which is why we haven't gone for Mark Gay in the starting 11. But thank you very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it or found it useful, then be sure to smash the like button and subscribe if you're new. Let's try to get this video to over 200 likes. Let's keep on pushing towards 20,000 subscribers and beyond. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and check all the links in the description below for the Patreon, channel memberships, Discord server, and the FPL League. All of that is there. I wish you all the best of luck for Gameweek 38, the final Gameweek of the season, and I'll see you next time.